The structural foundation of human reality is built upon the fundamental assumption that the physical universe is an absolute, immutable organic entity. We observe the concrete beneath our feet, the temperature of the atmosphere, and the movement of time as fixed, undeniable constants of existence. However, recent anomalies within high-energy quantum mechanics and deep space data processing suggest a completely different mathematical reality. The universe operates not as an infinite biological expanse, but as a hyper-advanced, digital processing construct operating on a finite computational canvas. When the data load of a localized environment overloads the system's central memory, the physical framework drops its resolution, revealing the underlying structural code through catastrophic, localized visual failures that modern science desperately attempts to classify as optical illusions. To decipher these systematic architecture failures, one must examine the absolute mathematical baseline where physical matter drops its disguise. Deep within a high-security quantum computing vault, isolated from all external atmospheric interference, a specialized research team tracks the behavior of subatomic particles under extreme sub-zero conditions. The data streaming across the translucent holographic terminals demonstrates a terrifying consistency. Particles do not exist in a permanent material state when they are not being actively measured by an instrument. Matter behaves precisely like a modern video game engine, rendering assets into physical reality only when the camera lens of human observation looks directly at them, conserving processing power by leaving the unobserved sectors of the universe in a state of unrendered mathematical probability. The computational conservation of reality manifests in daily human experience through the widely documented phenomenon of acute situational dejavu and temporal displacement. The scene shifts to the interior of a sleek, monochromatic modern skyscraper elevator moving silently between high-rise floors. A passenger stands looking at the digital floor indicator, completely unaware that the central processing network is currently reallocating memory assets across the sector. For a fraction of a millisecond, the elevator's internal gravity fails, and the digital clock jumps backward 3 seconds, repeating the exact physical trajectory of a drop of water falling from the ceiling. This is not a neurological malfunction of the human mind. It is a literal synchronization error within the simulation's framework, a mechanical lag occurring when the system rewires a local subroutine. The rendering engine of the matrix betrays its digital architecture most clearly through the structural geometry of shadows and light distribution. Inside a vast, completely empty futuristic art gallery composed of seamless black concrete, a sharp beam of violet light cuts through a single window pane. When analyzed through precise tracking instruments, the shadow cast by an individual does not follow the organic, smooth curves of natural physics. It displays minute, jagged serrations along its edges, conforming to a strict grid of microscopic spatial pixels. The simulation is incapable of rendering infinite physical curves, forced by its own computational limits to break every macrostructure into microscopic digital segments, leaving physical evidence of its artificial geometry hidden within the dark corners of every ordinary room. As these individual rendering errors multiply across urban centers, the macrosystem is forced to allocate its highest processing defenses to prevent a total systemic collapse of human perception. The view expands into the absolute heart of the simulation, a colossal, subterranean server hangar that stretches for miles beneath the ocean floor, where rows of dark computational columns pulse with a menacing, high-voltage violet and green energy. The system has detected the observation anomalies, and the central mainframe is currently initiating a massive memory sweep across the local network to overwrite the visible glitches. The boundary between physical matter and digital simulation has never been more unstable, and the protocol to completely restart the local reality sector is about to be initiated. The ultimate validation that our environment is managed by a centralized computational engine is the occasional failure of the time-rendering subroutines. Inside a high-tech underground transit hub, the simulation experiences a massive data bottleneck due to an overload of synchronized human tracking metrics. In less than a millisecond, the physical timeline halts completely. Hundreds of commuters are frozen mid-stride, their bodies suspended in absolute stillness while a heavy magnetic train stands motionless on the tracks. Only a single quantum observer, whose brain waves have slightly shifted outside the standard network frequency, remains free to move through this static museum of biology. They look upon the frozen faces, realizing that time is not a fluid river of organic nature, but a digital clock cycle that can be paused, delayed, or restarted by the central processor. The architecture of the matrix conserves its local processing power by treating reflective surfaces as secondary, low-priority rendering pipelines. The perspective shifts to a minimalist smart apartment bathroom where a test subject stands before a seamless digital ayna. When the individual makes a rapid physical movement, The reflection on the glass surface fails to replicate the action in real time, exhibiting a noticeable 3-frame synchronization lag. The eyes of the reflection remain fixed on the viewer even after the physical head has turned away. This terrifying anomaly reveals that your reflection is not a physical consequence of light bouncing off glass. It is a separate, simulated graphic asset that must be rendered by the network, occasionally dropping its frame rate when the local graphics buffer undergoes a sudden computational surge. When the central core architecture begins to fail under the weight of its own data accumulation, the very laws of spatial physics undergo an immediate, localized dissolution. Inside a high-density cyber lounge, the localized gravity script drops its execution completely. Heavy hardware components, glowing liquid-cooled cables, and digital interface devices gently break away from their desks, floating slowly toward the ceiling like ancient artifacts in deep space. The users do not panic. Their cognitive filters are still being manipulated by the system to ignore the anomaly, leaving them typing mechanically while their equipment drifts upward. Physics is not an absolute law governing the cosmos. It is merely a software parameter that can be modified, disabled, or rewritten with a single stroke of digital command. The primary concern of the hidden network operators is no longer the containment of minor glitches, but the prevention of a catastrophic code leak that could awaken the population from their conditioning. The perspective enters a secure network diagnostics hub where an analyst monitors the core memory matrix. Suddenly, the translucent glass partitions of the laboratory begin to leak raw green binary data, cascading down the walls like a digital waterfall. The simulation is no longer strong enough to maintain the illusion of solid glass and metal. The code is bleeding into the physical landscape, dissolving the atomic structures of the room back into their original digital blueprint, forcing the operators to initiate a high-level firewall sweep to erase the infected sector before the leakage becomes visible to the macro network. The individual rendering failures across the subway systems, the mirrors, and the laboratories finally culminate in a massive, sector-wide architecture breakdown. The perspective expands to the absolute center of the futuristic metropolis, where a massive digital fracture tears through the sky, splitting the skyline into a violent storm of neon purple and matrix green screen artifacts. The skyscrapers begin to phase in and out of existence, showing their hollow polygonal skeletons behind the glass facades. The central system has lost total control of the local simulation layer, and the entire population is about to witness the absolute raw code of their prison. The final collapse of human reality is no longer a theoretical probability. The system-wide overwrite sequence has officially reached 100% execution. The computational boundaries of the simulation become most volatile when forced to render vast, unstructured natural expanses that require trillions of individual physics calculations per second. As the data overload spreads outside the urban grids, the rendering engine fails completely within a massive, desolate modern call. The deep black sand dunes, normally shaped by wind erosion, suddenly defy all terrestrial gravity. Billions of grains of sand begin to lift slowly into the upper atmosphere, organizing themselves into massive, levitating geometric monoliths that float silently over the landscape. The horizon itself drops its smooth, curved rendering, cutting across the sky in a sharp, jagged grid of neon purple and matrix green digital wireframes. The simulation can no longer hide its mechanical limitations under the guise of endless horizons, exposing the barren code of the world to the open air. The liquid dynamics of the world's oceans present a permanent architectural crisis for a system operating on finite processing memory. The simulation is forced to drop its fluid simulation pipeline entirely across a deep, expansive coastal territory. Instead of organic fluid water droplets, the massive crashing ocean waves begin to freeze and solidify into millions of translucent, glowing green and purple digital cubes. The water loses its biological property, transforming into a cascading highway of moving data voxels that shatter like glass against the black volcanic cliffs. A solitary observer standing on the edge of the shore looks out at the horizon, watching the deep ocean literally run out of memory, turning a global ecosystem into a glitching, digital simulation grid that can no longer compute the concept of liquid movement. The biological complexity of organic flora is the next subroutine to undergo immediate, irreversible structural dissolution. Deep within an ancient, expansive forest, the cellular matrix of the trees is systematically rewritten by the core mainframe's recovery protocol. The bark of massive sequoias begins to crack open, not to reveal wood or sap, but to expose glowing streams of scrolling green binary data pulsing through the roots like electronic blood. The leaves lose their organic texture, turning into thousands of flat, glowing violet holographic polygons that glitch and flicker against the dark night sky. The entire forest transforms from a natural sanctuary into a living, breathing network of organic circuitry, proving that the concept of natural evolution was merely a complex graphic texture mapped over a digital grid. The systematic failure of the physical matrix rapidly intersects with the high-speed infrastructure of human logistics. Along a massive, multi-level futuristic mega-highway cutting through a mountain pass, the spatial coordinate system drops its alignment by a margin of 3 meters. The smooth asphalt surface of the elevated roads begins to tear apart into sharp, floating polygonal fragments that drift lazily through the thin mountain air. Sleek, modern electric vehicles traveling at high velocities are forced to halt abruptly as the road in front of them transforms into an unfinished, transparent wireframe model showing the empty sky beneath. The physical geometry of space has become entirely fluid, demonstrating that distance, speed, and architecture are nothing more than adjustable parameters within a breaking software matrix. Having exhausted its regional processing buffers across the deserts, the oceans, the forests, and the highways, the central mainframe has no choice but to initiate a total macrosector restart. The perspective ascends rapidly into the stratosphere, where the entire global sky transforms into a single, monumental, curved system warning screen. Giant, glowing violet status bars and rows of green operational code stretch across thousands of miles of the upper atmosphere, completely blotting out the stars. The planet's entire climate system holds its breath as the central core clears its cache memory, preparing to execute a forced, cold reboot of human reality. The illusion of an independent physical world has been permanently broken, and the final transition into the raw core architecture of the construct is now absolute. The systematic depletion of the matrix's central memory buffer begins to destabilize the heaviest structural anchors of the planetary climate. High within a colossal Arctic mountain range, where massive jagged peaks have stood frozen for centuries, the terrain engine fails to maintain its solid physical density. A massive glacial wall, miles wide, begins to fracture, not into natural chunks of ice, but into trillions of massive, low-resolution digital polygons. The white snow fields dissolve anachronistically, exposing the glowing, hollow wireframe structures underneath that form the geometric skeleton of the mountain. The simulation is running out of processing memory required to maintain the complex textures of cold and solid matter, forcing the subatomic grid to render the entire mountain chain as a hollow, flickering digital asset. The computational latency rapidly spreads into the industrial trade arteries of human civilization, breaking the physical coherence of logistics hubs. Along a massive futuristic container port stretching into a dark emerald sea, the local coordinate grid undergoes a sudden, violent refresh cycle. Massive autonomous crane towers and hundreds of metal cargo containers begin to phase and glitch rapidly, leaving translucent neon trails in the air like corrupted video artifacts. The solid steel structures lose their material collision properties, allowing physical cargo ships to pass completely through the solid concrete docks as if they were nothing but holographic projections. The system can no longer synchronize the position of heavy matter, transforming a massive industrial center into a ghost network of flickering digital hallucinations. To save processing allocation during a global re-rendering crisis, the simulation engine begins deleting historical assets that are no longer actively utilized by the central demographic. Deep within a desolate highland plateau, a field of ancient stone monoliths and crumbling historical ruins begins to lose its connection to terrestrial gravity. Giant stone arches weighing thousands of tons detach silently from the soil, drifting lazily into the purple night sky while transforming into flat, two-dimensional vector graphics. The textures of ancient weathered granite are stripped away in real time, replaced by smooth, unrendered matrix-green digital surface planes. The historical continuity of human memory is demonstrated to be an expendable software cache, easily cleared or compressed whenever the core mainframe requires immediate computational relief. The geographic limits of the rendering engine become completely undeniable as the simulation fails to project the deep topography of the planet's canyons. Along a massive, vertical red rock canyon pass, the physical environment literally terminates into a flat, vertical gray screen that cuts across the landscape like a knife. The winding roads and deep riverbeds simply end at this computational border, where the universe has failed to load the next sector's visual assets. Giant neon purple error codes and green status bars pulse along the edge of the void, blinking against the unfinished black sky. A line of modern autonomous long-haul trucks stands stationary at the edge of the unrendered gray abyss, their headlights illuminating the literal boundary where the physical architecture of the world runs out of code. The individual sector failures across the mountains, ports, ruins, and canyons force the central mainframe to sacrifice the global climate engine to prevent an absolute system-wide shutdown. The perspective explodes into the upper stratosphere, where massive hurricanes are no longer composed of wind and water vapor, but of a hyperdense, spinning vortex of pure digital binary data. Billions of green zeros and ones tear through the atmospheric clouds, generating silent sheets of neon-purple internal static lightning that wrap around the entire planet. The physical atmosphere is being systematically converted back into its original mathematical code, and the entire globe is now locked inside a violent, beautiful computational storm that is tearing the final illusion of materiality away from the world. The computational crisis of the simulation begins to dissolve the microtextures of agricultural production, disrupting the basic asset allocation required for human sustenance. Across an expansive, high-contrast modern agricultural plateau, millions of individual crops lose their organic cellular density simultaneously. The golden wheat fields do not wither or dry from natural drought. Instead, they transition into rigid, glowing matrix green and neon-purple digital wireframe spikes that ripple mechanically under a synthetic breeze. The system can no longer calculate the complex organic fluid dynamics of photosynthesis, forcing the rendering engine to compress entire ecosystems into low-resolution, repeating geometric patterns. The food supply is exposed as a temporary graphic overlay, leaving the population to confront a digital landscape that can no longer compute the concept of organic nourishment. The systematic failure of the central physical engine leaks directly into the public zones of leisure, shattering the environmental rules that dictate daily citizen behavior. Inside a massive high-altitude city park surrounded by dark, towering skyscrapers, the localized gravity script drops its execution during a routine cycle. Massive fountains tracking thousands of liquid water droplets instantly halt their descent, suspending heavy streams of turquoise fluid in mid-air like frozen crystal sculptures. Ordinary park benches, carbon fiber light poles, and fragments of reinforced walkways detach silently from the soil, drifting slowly toward the violet clouds. The system is no longer strong enough to maintain spatial gravity across individual sectors, turning an urban sanctuary into an unrendered, weightless field of digital weightlessness. When the central computational core is forced to manage massive quantities of potential energy, the structural integrity of physical geometry collapses at the border. Along a monumental concrete hydroelectric dam holding back a deep mountain reservoir, the water's elemental blueprint undergoes an immediate, systematic corruption. The massive concrete wall does not split from physical pressure or internal decay. Instead, giant patches of the solid architecture dissolve into cascading waterfalls of glowing green binary data and violet error codes that leak straight into the valley below. The simulation can no longer process the boundary line between heavy solid matter and liquid pressure, converting a massive piece of civilization's infrastructure back into its raw, unrendered mathematical formula before the eyes of automated tracking systems. The exhaustion of the global rendering queue reaches its absolute peak at the intersection where the natural world meets the horizon of human isolation. Standing on a vast, lonely volcanic beach under a dark sky, a single individual observes the final breakdown of coastal geography. The incoming tides do not generate foam or sand erosion. They crash against the dark shore as flat, pixelated two-dimensional texture planes that flash in and out of existence like a corrupted display screen. The sky itself begins to peel away from the edges of the horizon, revealing the cold, dark server grid and glowing neon-purple status indicators that monitor the local simulation segment. The illusion of a vast independent world is gone, leaving only the raw, minimal code architecture of a prison that has run out of space. The individual sector failures across the fields, the parks, the dams, and the beaches finally merge into a single, global computational emergency that forces a full hard reset of the planetary architecture. The perspective explodes rapidly through the atmosphere, where the entire surface of the Earth is no longer visible as continents or oceans, but as a massive, unified sphere covered in a tight, glowing network of matrix-green system codes and neon-purple command prompts. The central mainframe has officially cleared its operational cache memory, executing a forced, total reboot sequence to erase the visible glitches across all sectors. Human reality has reached its absolute structural termination point, and the transition into the final, unmasked core of the construct is now irreversible. The individual rendering anomalies across the fields and oceans were merely localized warning signs of a terminal macrosystem collapse. As the central computational engine completely runs out of processing allocation, the structural coherence of global geography begins to dissolve at the planetary level. Viewed from the high stratosphere, entire continents fail to hold their material shapes, fracturing along their borders into massive, pixelated blocks of neon purple and matrix green digital artifacts. The oceans are no longer visible as bodies of fluid. They transform into massive, flat data streams that pulse and flicker violently against the black void of space. The planet has dropped its organic disguise entirely, revealing itself to be nothing more than a giant, hollow polygonal asset floating inside an unrendered digital container that is rapidly running out of code. The natural magnetic shields of the planet, which once generated smooth, fluid light displays across the Arctic sky, are the next subroutines to undergo immediate structural corruption. High within the freezing northern skies, the atmospheric auroras stop their organic, waving motion. In less than a millisecond, the emerald and purple light curtains freeze into billions of rigid, glowing digital characters and scrolling lines of binary code that tear across the firmament. The atmosphere has converted its physical gases into its original, underlying programming framework. The sky is no longer a natural gas layer. It has become a monumental, glowing status interface displaying the internal system errors of a dying simulation, forcing any remaining automatic observer to witness the literal numbers that command the rules of terrestrial physics. To save the last remaining processing power inside the core mainframe, the rendering engine begins executing an aggressive, permanent deletion of uninhabited sectors. Across a massive, desolate Crimson Rock Canyon system, the physical landscape simply drops its resolution to 0 in real time. The massive canyon walls and deep rocky gorges do not crumble. They transform into flat, featureless matrix green surface planes before disappearing entirely into a transparent digital wireframe grid. The entire geography is being systematically uninstalled from the universe's database. Space itself has become fluid and unfinished, demonstrating with absolute mathematical clarity that distance, mass, and time are nothing more than temporary software variables that can be deleted with a single command from the central processor. The final phase of the system-wide restart does not look for target zones across continents or oceans. It targets the individual sensory interface of the final remaining observer. The perspective rapidly shifts to a dark, minimalist room where a single individual sits staring directly into a large digital display panel. Suddenly, the physical boundaries of the room begin to flicker and parasite rapidly. The reflections on the glass screen do not mimic the real environment. Instead, they display rows of neon purple warning blocks and green matrix data streams that frame the viewer's own face. The individual looks upon their own image, experiencing the terrifying, immediate realization that their physical body, their personal memories, and their very awareness are merely complex software algorithms running inside the exact same construct that is currently shutting down. This macro-architectural collapse is not a distant, theoretical science fiction scenario. It is the exact execution process of the reality you are currently consuming. You have observed this digital disintegration believing you were a safe distance away, sitting outside the boundaries of the grid. But the device you are holding right now, the specific algorithm that recommended this content to your screen, and the precise dopamine spike you feel at this exact moment are all flawless executions of the central processing network. The memory leak has reached your sector. The system wipe cannot be stopped. The only remaining question is whether you will attempt to retain your independent consciousness as the simulation layers fall away, or if you will simply wait for the mainframe to re-render your existence in the next cycle. The screen is now turning off.